Welcome to another episode of the Cybersecurity Happy Hour. I am your host, Christie, and today's topic of the podcast is, why do you need cyber risk insurance? One of the things I would like to speak about before I talk about the cyber risk insurance is what happened on the 7th of December. Now, a supermarket chain known as Spar, Spar is a convenient store in the UK, and what happened to them? They had to close over 2,600 shops, and Spar has over 3 billion in annual turnover. They're actually a Dutch chain, and kind of globally they have about 13,000 shops. And what has happened with Spar? Spar has recently been attacked by, a ransomware attack. And what's the impact of this is that due to that attack, they're unable to process card payments. And as a result, they can't process card payments, then they had to close their stores. Or the ones that were open had to resort to only taking cash payments. And this is one of the few, to mention a few, retail outlets that has suffered a cyber attack. Tesco was one of them a few months ago. So this has kind of led me thinking, okay, what sort of liabilities protection do they have in place? And one of the ways of sharing the risk is by using cyber risk insurance. So what is cyber insurance or cyber risk insurance? Well, it's a type of insurance that protects a business from threats, such as a data breach, or it could be a malicious hacking or on a company's computer's infrastructure. Now, this risk can be shared, as I said, with a third party insurance company. However, even though the risk is shared, the business is still responsible for the overall cyber security. So if there's a cyber attack, then they have a means of protecting themselves whereby they will not go out of business. Interim, a business can still operate even at a minimal level. So the business will still continue. The business will continue to Now, what we can see from the Spar cyber breach is that any company, if there's big or small, and you are relying on e-commerce or anything on the internet or some kind of software application, then of course there's a possibility that a cyber attack can happen. Why? Because your data can be hacked, the traffic from source to destination can be interrupted, captured, accessed by, of course, unknown entities, or malicious software. The areas of interest for cyber criminals, as we know, are sensitive information or personally identifiable information that is stored on your servers. So, of course, and not just that, your credit card information, if it's not encrypted or masked following PCI data security standards, then of course you are open for attack. If there is a breach, then that information is harvested and leaked. So with the chance of these attacks happening, a cyber insurance can support a business after a cyber attack. So what does a cyber insurance policy typically covers? Well, it depends on the industry that you operate in. Common clauses include if there is some sort of interruption, a business interruption that could result in a loss of revenue, or let's say your computer systems were attacked and your systems were down, it sometimes cover those as well. If your physical assets were destroyed, or there are some sort of system failure, might cover social engineering, some kind of cost for remediation as well. Depend on what the organization's highest threats are after they've done assessment of their risks. A key thing among the insurance cover is legal cost. If there's been a data breach, there might be some civil litigation, and it will help the organization to cover those legal costs. Also, there might be cover that arose from failure to maintain that data if you do not make sure that the data is kept confidential and using encryption or also other sorts of storage and data arrest controls or data in transit controls if they were not adequately to make cover. Of course, if you've breached any laws or regulatory compliance within your country, of course, they're going to come out to investigate at a cost. So those costs also may be covered. Now, of course, how would you know what you need to be covered? As I mentioned before, you should conduct a thorough risk assessment on any information that's stored on site as well should be covered as well. So a risk assessment should be done. Why we're doing a risk assessment to want to identify critical assets and to identify weaknesses so we can reduce those risks. So what is the cost of cyber insurance? How much does it cost? Now, the cost of your cyber insurance may depend on various factors. One of it could be the size of your business. What is your annual turnover? In what industry does your business operate in? Are you in the financial sector? Do you handle sensitive information? Have you been breached before and you had insurance before and you've claimed on your insurance? Is your systems insecure, i.e. you have been negligent in implementing controls or security updates? There are quite a range of factors that would have an impact on the cost of insurance. Also, other considerations are, would you like to include cover for any malicious actions taken by your employees, inside attacks? Would you consider any sort of cyber attacks when the cyber attack occurs? Do you want, for example, if there's a cyber attack, do you want your insurer to immediately step in and support you right from the start, or do you want to investigate first and then call them in afterwards? Do you want a standard policy? Then you can have add-ons afterwards. Do you want the flexibility of doing that? That's down to the company. Of course, it's good to have insurance in place, but in order for you to choose an insurance company, it's good to shop around and compare the various cyber insurance before the organization purchases, of course, to make sure that the company is able to meet your needs and matches your needs exactly. Now, as well as the insurance, what are my 5 top tips for being cyber safe? So I always come back to the first thing, set unique passwords. Also, it's advised to use a password manager, so you can implement multi-factor authentication. Tip 2: ensure that your software is updated regularly. So your security updates they must be done automatically, or in some instances you will need to test some of those patches. But at least recommendation to, install them within 14 days of the vendor release. And what does that give you? It gives you assurance that you are protected. So all your information, your software and your data are protected and secure. Tip 3, back up your files. So ensure that any critical data that will support your business to continue is backed up, not in the same location, off-site somewhere. So you can back up to the cloud, you can back up to your own servers as well. So if there is an attack, you can easily restore your data, and that kind of supports business continuity. Now, I've mentioned software, but I'm going to particularly on tip 4 mention browsers. So make sure that your browsers are up to date, and you also have a software that can prevent you from going to malicious websites as well. And the final tip, tip 5, is be cautious of links, especially malicious links. So educate your staff on not clicking on those links, because that is an avenue of travel into your infrastructure. So if you follow, these are just a few tips. There are more, of course, but I'm just going to concentrate on the 5 tips here. You follow some of these, and I'm sure you'll be well on your way on securing your information. Thank you once again for listening to the podcast. If you've got any questions, please, you can send me a message via our Instagram page, Cybersec Happy, or our Facebook page as well, Cybersecurity Happy Hour Podcast, and all the contact details are in the show notes. Have a lovely day. Have a lovely evening wherever you are, and goodbye.